So now we have to read from if we look for the reason of this limitation and imperfection. So shall we do the normal thing? Shall I read out the previous para's summary? Okay, then we get the context. Otherwise, it remains a little vague. So, in the previous para, which we read yesterday, he is saying it is evident that man's knowledge is a half knowledge, okay, and therefore a half ignorance. We neither know ourselves fully nor the world. This is obvious and natural since there exists a clear separation between ourselves and the world. He is discussing the types of knowledge that we can have: direct knowledge and indirect knowledge, etc. The origin of the world is a mystery. The source of our own existence is a mystery. The meaning and existence of the world is a mystery. This would not be if our knowledge of ourselves and the world would be true and complete. So there is a limitation. Now he is going to take up the reason for the limitation. Okay, so yesterday we have read the para, so I'll read each sentence and then we will discuss it.
No, Rangada, we couldn't read the paragraph.
Oh, acha. Okay.
Yes,
Then can you read it today?
Yes, Rangada, that's what I'm doing.
Okay, please do that.
If we look for the reason of this limitation and imperfection, we shall find first that it is because we are concentrated on our surface. The depths of self, the secrets of our total nature are shut away from us behind a wall created by our externalizing consciousness, or created for it so that it can pursue its activity of egocentric individualization of the mind, life, and body, uninvaded by the deeper and wider truth of a larger existence. Through this wall, we can look into our inner self and reality only through crevices and portholes, and we see little there but a mysterious dimness. At the same time, our consciousness has to defend its egocentric individualization not only against its own deeper self of oneness and infinity, but against the cosmic infinite. It builds up a wall of division here also and shuts out all that is not centered round its ego, excludes it as the not self. But since it has to live with this not self, for it belongs to it, depends upon it, is an inhabitant within it, it must maintain some means of communication. It has to make excursions out of its wall of ego and wall of self restriction within the body in order to cater for those needs which the not self can supply to it. It must learn to know in some way all that surrounds it so as to be able to master it and make it as far as possible a servant to the individual and collective human life and ego. The body provides the consciousness with the gates of the senses through which it can establish the necessary communication and means of observation and action upon the world, upon the not self outside it. The mind uses this means and invents others that supplement them, and it succeeds in establishing some construction, some system of knowledge which serves its immediate purpose or its general will to master partially and use this huge alien environmental existence or deal with it where it cannot master it. But the knowledge it gains is objective. It is mainly a knowledge of the surface of things or of what is just below the surface, pragmatic, limited, and insecure. Its defense against the invasion of the cosmic energy is equally insecure and partial. In spite of its notice of no entry without permission, it is subtly and invisibly invaded by the world, enveloped by the not self, and molded by it. Its thought, its will, its emotional, and its life energy are penetrated by waves and currents of thought, will, passion, vital impacts, forces of all kinds from others, and from universal nature. Its wall of defense becomes a wall of obscuration which prevents it from knowing all this interaction. It knows only what comes through the gates of sense or through mental perceptions of which it cannot be sure, or through what it can infer to build up from its gathered sense data. All the rest is to it a blank of nuisance.
Yeah. Very interesting para, and again we have to concentrate on the words, and every phrase that he uses is so descriptive. So we have to look very carefully and see what he's saying. So it is very obvious that we are limited. We are limited about ourselves, and we are also limited about the world. We don't know anything about the world. Okay, so this is the situation. Now he's saying, let us discuss why it is like that. What is the reason for that? Now, if you look at this, so I'm reading each sentence. If we look for the reason of this limitation and imperfection, we shall find first that it is because we are concentrated on our surface. Okay? We are only bothered about our body-mind life, which is absolutely the surface. It's difficult to go inside. See, it is very interesting that even when you are floating on the on the sea, it's not easy to go in. You have to wear all sorts of equipment to be able to go down. You try to go down, it's not easy. Same thing psychologically also, to go into yourself is difficult. And there's very good reason for it. That reason only he will tell you. The depths of self, the secrets of our total nature are shut away from us behind a wall created by our externalizing consciousness. So, total nature, the subconscious, the intraconscious, the supraconscious, and the circumconscious. That's our total nature. We are really the universe. And man is everything that is there in the universe. A little bit of all that is already in him. We have discussed this many times. And you are a miniature universe. And the universe is a macro individual, if you want to. You can put it that way. There's a big correlation. Whatever is there in the universe is there in you, but in a very minute manner. Okay, so the two are absolutely dependent on each other. Okay, this also is discussed very interestingly. It's very obvious that the individual depends on the universe. Why? Because even our food comes from the universe. So our body depends on that. And we also need companionship, and that is in the universe. If you don't have companionship, now the result very clear what has happened in the COVID period. Okay? If you don't have companionship, what happens? Mental illness, the feeling that you are alone is a fantastically difficult situation. I think you have all heard that, no? The COVID, when there was what is called a lockdown, okay? People are not allowed to go. Even children are having problems. In fact, we have opened even a consultation unit in the ashram also, children. They were so you need the universe in every way. Okay. So, and it's very obvious that for your TV and your internet and your mobile, you need the universe. Without the universe, you will not have all these things. So you are very dependent on the universe. But the universe also is dependent on you. That's very interesting and not very obvious. But in Life Divine Cerebro says that the universe is a little disgusted. It's my way of putting it. The universe is disgusted with this little, very slow pace of development. So it brings in man who can now do the evolutionary process much faster than himself. So the universe also depends upon the individual. So there is this interrelation between the two. Now he is using the word, we are concentrated on the surface. The depths of self, the secrets of our total nature are shut away from us behind a wall created by our externalizing consciousness. Now concentrate on our externalizing consciousness. Why should your consciousness be externalizing? Because all your senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and touch, are all outward oriented. Now that's what is externalizing you. But the nature has given you these senses so that you can know something about what's happening in the universe. But if these are not there, now imagine the opposite. Just think of a man who is blind, what happens to him? He develops tremendous sensitivity. Even if someone is coming into the room, he senses it. Okay? So that is the opposite of the externalizing consciousness. Because his externalizing consciousness is limited, he concentrates inwards and he develops powers which normally other people don't have. Okay? So this externalizing consciousness, he has just used two words. But the reason is your senses are all outward oriented. And this is also mentioned very clearly in the Upanishads. Okay? They all look outwards. There is only one sense which looks inwards. And that is the real totality of all your senses, and that's the mind. The mind can look into yourself. And that's the reason why the animal, which does not have a mind, cannot look into itself. It can never have a psychological analysis of itself. Man can, but doesn't mostly do it. Okay. So externalizing consciousness, the reason is that. Okay. They are oriented outwards or created for it so that it can pursue its activity of egocentric individualization of the mind, life, and body, uninvaded by the deeper and wider truth of our larger existence. So, which is the deeper and wider truth of our larger existence? Obviously, the cosmos. Okay. But why is he using so many words and not saying cosmos? Because he is actually giving you extra information. This is the reason why we go into all the words carefully. Behind every word, there are vibrations which you must sense and understand what he's saying. You get more and more knowledge if you concentrate on the words. Deeper and wider. Deeper is downwards or even inwards, horizontally. And wider, okay, it becomes wide. This is the circumconscient. So, deeper and wider truth about larger existence. Which is our larger existence? The universe. We have just now discussed the larger existence and the minor existence. The individual and the universe. So, larger existence, the universe. But if you are exposed to the universe at a level where your knowledge is very limited and your capacity is limited, there will be tremendous amount of confusion. So, to protect you from the confusion of the wider self, you have to concentrate on yourself, and that's the ego. The ego actually protects you. It protects you from the vast forces of the universe. If that is not there, then there will be absolute chaos within yourself. Okay? So, this is what he's saying. The ego is individualization of the mind, life, and body. And when your mind, life, and body is individualized, what happens? You have cut yourself off from the universe. And there is a good reason for that, because it is protecting you. So everything in the world you will see, even that which you consider wrong, has got a purpose. So your ego has got a tremendous purpose in the beginning, but later on, when you have developed yourself, it becomes a hindrance and you have to get rid of it. So, Shyam's famous example, ego was the helper, ego is the bar. When you want to go beyond the ego, it becomes a difficulty. Okay? But in the beginning, it's a help. So, ego is centric individualization of the mind, life, and body, uninvaded by the deeper and wider truth of our larger existence. Now, he's saying, through this wall, which we can look into, through this wall, we can look into our inner self and reality only through crevices and portholes. You know what a porthole is? Crevice, you know, a crack somewhere, okay? In a tree or in a ground or anywhere, there's a crack. So through that crack, you can go. Insects and ants and all that come through cracks, and then they attack your whatever you want to protect, food and all that. Then porthole. A porthole is in a ship where there are small, because they have to protect themselves from the water. So there are small openings, round openings in the ship. Those are the portholes. And we see little there, but a mysterious dimness. When we look into ourselves, We don't distinguish what is there really. We have a vague feeling. Our emotions and our thoughts also, we can't distinguish between them. It's a mysterious dimness. So he's saying that there are small, small things by which you can go into yourself, but your knowledge is very, very imperfect. At the same time, our consciousness has to defend its egocentric individualization. We have to guard ourselves against all the invasions. Even in the physical world, all nations are doing that. It is guarding itself and putting up barriers. The individual also is doing the same. He has to protect himself. So we have to separate nations. We have either a wall or a fence or a barbed wire, and that's exactly what we also have to do. We have to protect ourselves. So to defend its egocentric individualization. Note the interesting application of this truth at the universal level as well as the individual level. Because constantly we have to see this correlation between the individual and the universe. So you protect yourself, just as in the physical world, a nation protects itself, or even your house. Okay, you build either a fence or a wall to protect your own house. So, at the same time, our consciousness has to defend its egocentric individualization, not only against its own deeper self of oneness and infinity, but against the cosmic infinite. It builds up a wall of division here also and shuts out all that is not centered around its ego. I'll stop here because he's saying you build two walls. You build a wall which does not allow you to go into yourself. Because if you go into yourself, you will see so many things that you will be absolutely flabbergasted. I'll give you one example, then you will see. There are your past lives, okay? And there are also so many things which you are not aware of, okay? Your motives and all that is there in the, you are not even aware of your psychic being. So all these things are there. So you have to, if that comes to you when you are not ready, it will completely upset you. So it has to protect yourself from the inward, but also from the outward. That's what he's saying, okay? But since it has, wall of division here also, and shuts out all that is not centered around its ego, excludes it as a not self. Everything outside yourself is a not self. And yourself also, you are unable to see yourself. So there is a double wall. There is a wall of the that doesn't allow you to go inwards, and there is a wall that is separating you from the universe, and that's the ego wall. Okay, two walls. He has described this in synthesis elsewhere, very detailed manner. Two walls protect you. They actually protect you when you are not ready. But when you are ready, you don't want these walls. You want to break them down and experience much faster the regions. It must maintain. So now I read that last sentence because I did not read. But since it has to live with this not self, that's exactly what we discussed. You need the universe. So, but it has, you are protecting yourself from the universe, but you need it. So what do? For it belongs to it, depends upon it, is an inhabitant within it. The individual is living in the universe and needs it. For it belongs to the universe, it depends upon the universe, is an inhabitant of the universe. It must maintain some means of communication. You can't shut yourself off from your helper. The universe is helping you, actually sustaining you, but not only helping, sustaining you. Without food, you will die. Okay? Not to speak of other things. Then, within the body, it must maintain some means of communication. It has to make excursions out of its wall of ego and wall of self-restriction. So see the two walls. Wall of ego separates you from the universe. And wall of self-restriction, it doesn't allow you to go within yourself. The two walls. Okay? See very clearly. The external wall is wall of ego, which cuts you off from the universe. And the wall of self-restriction, you are not going within the body, in order to cater for those needs which the not self can supply to it. And what can the not self supply? Not self, universe, can supply to it. What is it supplying? As I told you, it is supplying food at the physical level. You can't do without food and water. Then it is supplying emotions and companionship and association with others, which is absolutely essential. Okay? And I'll give you an instance why we don't think it is essential. We may think that we don't need to depend on others, but you do need to depend upon others, even at the vital level. I'll give you two examples. One we already discussed, the COVID problem. Okay? When you are restricted, locked down, tremendous problems arise. Okay? You may have heard about it. I don't know if you have heard, but mental illnesses have increased like anything. Then another very interesting phenomenon, the married couples, when they are forced to remain at home, start quarreling. Unfortunately, because no two individuals will have perfect harmony. Okay, so this is also something I have read about it. So the marital problems increase with the lockdown. So you see how important it is to have some connection with the universe. Okay, then I'll give you another instance of how problematic it can be when you don't have companionship. When the astronauts are going into space, suppose they are going to the moon, it will take a long time. But suppose they are going to the Mars, it will take 6 months. Now, if that in that 6 months, this astronaut, maximum he has got a companion, but nobody else. So what happens? They develop psychological problems. So they are trained to meet this problem of psychological problems. So how do they do that? They put them in a room. This is what actually NASA is doing, National Aeronautical Space Agency in America. They put the person into a dark room where it's closed, no sounds come, and no light is there for 24 hours. Now just imagine what will happen to you if that is the situation. Okay? So slowly they get trained to live calmly without companionship. So it is such a problem. So this is why you have to have a connection with the universe. Okay, so that is what it's not obvious, but when you see the problem, then you know that yes, it's a problem. Okay? So it has to make, so we are saying, it has to make excursions. An excursion is going out of your own house and going somewhere where you've not gone before. Excursion. We use the word also for picnics and outings. No? So it has to make excursions out of its wall of ego and wall of self-restriction, both the walls within the body, in order to cater for those needs which the not self can supply to it. Very clear now, right? It must learn to know in some way all that surrounds it. That's a circumconscious. So you have to know what surrounds it, so as to be able to master it and make it, as far as possible, a servant to the individual and collective human life in it. So, if you are very selfish, it only serves yourself. But if you are slightly more liberal and you are wide-minded, then you use that also for the good of collectivity, for the good of society. Okay? Humanitarianism, okay? Charity, that's what he's talking about. The body provides our consciousness with the gates of the senses through which it can establish the necessary communication and means of observation and action upon the world, upon the not self outside it. So you may feel like very natural, but you have to see the importance of the senses. Nature is so kind, it has given you senses to establish a connection with the universe. Of course, those senses are not the only way you can have contact with the universe. There are other better ways which come with yogic discipline. Not self outside. The mind uses these means and invents others that supplement them. Now, again, question of language and those language. The mind uses these means. What are these means he's talking about? The senses. He's saying means of observation and action, and he's repeating the word means. So the mind uses these means, your senses, and invents others that supplement them. And what are those? Imagination, the coordinating mind. We have spoken about that elsewhere. These are supplemented. The imagination and the coordinating mind and all that are not so much in the animal. The animal is all oriented outwards fully through its senses. But man has got a more instruments of knowledge. So he mentioned particularly imagination and the coordinating mind. Okay? Reason is another. Reason also is one of those systems which help you to establish connection with things. Okay? The mind uses these means and invents others that supplement them. And it succeeds in establishing some construction, some system of knowledge, which serves its immediate purpose or its general will to master partially and use this huge alien environmental existence. Now, here is another example of Spencer's use of words. Huge alien environmental existence. So, what are these 3-4 words meaning? Huge, 1. Alien, 2. Environmental, 3. Existence, 4. He's just meaning the cosmos. But he's using 4 words for that. Why? Because he's giving you extra information. First of all, this cosmos is huge. It is illimitable. Secondly, it is alien. You know nothing about it. And third, environmental. It's all around you and yet you don't know it. But it's an existence. It is there. It's a very, very potent and patent fact. Or deal with it where it cannot master it. So if you want to master the universe, fine. That's what science is trying to do all the time. Or you have to deal with it sufficiently, efficiently and sufficiently you have to deal with it. But the knowledge it gains is objective. Science, very clear. Okay? It is mainly a knowledge of the surface of things or of what is just below the surface. Pragmatic, limited, insecure. Perfect description of science. Okay? Or even other things also, practical science. It is only below, slightly below the surface. What do you mean by slightly below the surface? For instance, take electricity. Okay? You don't know what electricity is, but you know how to use it. And when you know how to use it, you are going slightly below only the surface. I can use it for running a pump. I can use it for watching TV. I can use it for internet. Okay, but I need. So I'm going slightly below. And yet, you don't know fully how to use it. Limited and insecure. Insecure. It can fail anytime. Okay, the power supply in Pondicherry has been failing quite frequently. Insecure, not at all sure. But the spiritual power does not fail. Okay? Its defense against the invasion of the cosmic energy is equally insecure. You are trying to protect yourself, but it doesn't work always. Neither it works at the physical level, nor at the vital level, nor at the mental level. Physical level, someone can come and beat you up. Okay? You are exposed to it. The vital level, someone can insult you. At the mental level, they can hypnotize you even. So you are susceptible to the wrong influence of the universe. Okay, so its defense against the invasion of the cosmic energy, you are trying to do that with an outer wall and an inner wall. But the outer wall is not very well built, is equally insecure and partial, in spite of its notice of no entry without permission. Okay, very interestingly, you want to remain separate, and yet you cannot. Thoughts invade you, okay, illnesses invade your body, and emotions invade you from outside. Mother says very clearly that these forces are like infection. You get infected with that. You don't get infected with illness. You also get infected with wrong vibrations. Okay, it's an infection. Okay, equally insecure and particular. In spite of its notice of no entry without permission, it is subtly and invisibly invaded by the world, enveloped by the not self. Not self again, that is outside you. And molded by it, not that. That's very interesting. The universe is molding you. This also is very interesting. The environment in which you are determines much of your behavior. Okay? So I am expanding on what he's saying. He has used only two words, molded by it. But you have to expand the idea and see what is meant by molded by it. That is the reason why in India we have the concept of satsang. If you go to a place where there is satsang, it will affect you positively. But if you associate yourself with the wrong forces, it will be the opposite. It will be asatsang. You will be infected by this. So be very careful of your companionship. Okay? That's what Sir Vivek said. And we don't know that we are being invaded by forces. I think I told you once, and I'll repeat because it's very relevant to what we are discussing now. I had a vision once in which I am seeing that I am coming home. When I have gone out, I have locked my door. And when I am coming back, I open the door, I open the lock and look inside. And what do I see? I see a wild party going on with 25, 30 people, drinking and doing all sorts of things. And I got furious. I said, this is my house. How dare you come into this and do this? What right do you have? Get out, all of you. So this is a vision of the truth of the universe invading you and infecting you. It's absolutely a fact. We don't know that other people's thoughts are entering into our mind and affecting us. We don't know that other people's emotions and vibrations also are affecting us. This also is very true. If you associate yourself with somebody who is as we discussed now, constantly there is an interchange between the environment and you. You are sending out vibrations, but you are also receiving vibrations from others. And this becomes very obvious if you are in connection with a person who is depressed. You also will get depressed. Okay, this can happen unless you are a very strong person. You can get infected by other people's angers. It happened to me once in the press. There is a quarrel going on somewhere, and I wondered what's going on. I went near. I also, listening to all those things, I also got angry. Okay? But the best example of this anger, I'll tell you, it's very interesting. That's why all these small incidents, you have to be very, very observant and see what's happening. I'll tell you a very interesting story about this, how the world invades you and affects you. Okay? In knowledge, you know where knowledge is, no? It's a very narrow lane, and unfortunately, that narrow lane is full of activity. There is a coffee shop in the corner, which many people use. Even some of our ashramites also go and use that coffee shop. Then a little further down, there is our granary, okay, where we store all our wheat and rice and dal and all these things. There is a granary. A little further down, there is a society office. And little further down, there is a hotel. And by the side of that, there is a restaurant now which is going to open. And our own library is there also opposite. And there is this high design office which is there, and society office at the end. So it's a very busy street. And it's difficult to park our cycles. So one day what happened, one of the boys had parked his motorcycle in such a way, and the others had come and put their cycles and all that right in front, so he could not get his motorcycle out. So he got very angry, and he started shouting at the persons who had kept that, they had obstructed his motorcycle from coming out. They had a quarrel, and they were quarreling. Okay, that quarrel will be restricted only to two people. But there was a passerby who had nothing to do with this. It's the most amusing, at the same time, it's very instructive. This passerby was on a moped, and he came and he stopped and he said, what is all this hullabaloo about? And when he heard all that going on, he parked his bike and came and started fighting with our boy. In fact, he injured him. So here is a fellow who has nothing to do with what happened, and he is getting infected with this, and he starts fighting. And our boy had to actually get himself treated by a doctor, and he made a police complaint. I'm telling you this how the world is constantly invading you. Look at this fellow who had nothing to do with it, got invaded by what is happening in the universe, and it affected him so badly. Okay, this is what happens. But we are absolutely unaware of all these things. Okay, so illnesses come into you negatively, wrong influences come into you at the vital level, wrong vibrations, wrong thoughts come into your mind from outside. So the world is gone. Of course, there are also good forces that are also coming, but we are not aware of them. We think it's our own good thought, good emotion, and all. That's true. Okay? So this is what happens. So that's what Sridhar is describing. He just put, but we have to expand the ideas and see how it is true in the physical world. So in spite of its notice of no entry without permission, and what is this? The two walls, the wall within and the wall outside. It is subtly, and don't think the wall is something, is an image. It's a reality. It's a very subtle substance that actually protects you. It's a subtle wall. Okay? But it is real. In spite of its no entry without permission, it is subtly and invisibly invaded by the world, enveloped by the not self, and molded by it. I've told you all these things already, molded by it. Okay, the universe actually conditions you. That's the reason why we should have good companionship. Satsang, as we discussed. Its thought, its will, its emotional, and its life energy are penetrated from outside by waves and currents of what? Thought, will, passion, vital impacts, forces of all kinds from others and from universal nature. So universal nature also is sending forces into you, and others also are infecting you with their own ideas and emotions and thoughts. Its wall of defense becomes a wall of obscuration. So the wall that you had built around you becomes a wall of darkness, obscuration, which prevents you from knowing all this interaction. So this is why we don't know how we are interacting with the universe. Okay, it knows only what comes through the gates of sense. Now, that's when we're using the gates of sense, because those are the ones which are turning outwards, or through mental perceptions, of which it cannot be sure, or through what it can infer or build up from its gathered sense data. This is what science also does. It gathers sense data and analyzes and infers and builds. Okay? So all the rest is to it a blank of nations. So a para where I gave you many examples to understand exactly what he's saying. Okay? So this is why we are absolutely ignorant of ourselves and ignorant of the world. That's what he's saying. Oh my God. 8:39. So, but even while we were reading it, I found it a very interesting idea with examples. Then you understand exactly what Sridhar is saying. So we have to necessarily stop here today. Okay. So it's 8:40 already. So I found it very interesting. I don't know if you people found it interesting or you followed what I was saying. But so next time, next week, we'll see. It is then this double wall. Okay. So since Sunki is not there, I'll make a note on the chat. Okay.
I show you later. I show you
you are
later,
there,
Angata.
Sunki. Sorry. You were not there.
Yes,
Okay.
I'll
Merci
wait.
beaucoup.
Very
I'll
happy.
make her. Thank you, Angata.
Okay. Au revoir, everybody.